In 1982, Roxanne Sharp was killed in Louisiana.
Darkness, debaters starts now.
Welcome back, everybody, to this is kind of a special episode. It's a little bit different. If you have followed us for any amount of time, you know that Brandy has a very dedicated series that she does called What Was Done in the Dark. And this is all cold cases that have been solved or possibly are being solved right now. That's not our usual cold case unsolved for 20 years, still unsolved, or debated cases. But this is an important series to show that those small things make a huge difference. Those small little tips that you remember make a huge difference. And it's also important to remember that darkness won't last forever. All you got to do is turn on the light. That everything that's done in the dark does come to the light eventually.
It does. I think it's very fitting of the series that whatever happens in the dark will always come to light eventually. So,
yes. Absolutely. So, without further ado, I'm going to let Brandy introduce us to this case. It's very interesting. She's caught me up on it. Of course, I've seen the What Was Done in the Dark that she did about it, and this is the deep dive for that. So, which case is this, Brandy?
It's a case I just did just recently for What Was Done in the Dark, and it's the case of Miss Roxanne Sharp. She was a 16-year-old that went missing in Covington, Louisiana, back in February of 1982. And her case went cold for many, 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 many years, up until just recently. It starts with, and I've told Mandy about this, it kind of ties back, doing what we do. It starts with, of course, a cold case, and back then in 1982, not a lot of people were talking in this group of people that were involved. And unfortunately, when they found her and they came upon the crime scene, it had recently rained and it had washed away some evidence. So, they knew some things, but they needed people to talk. And that's where this case was lacking. They just needed people to talk. There was a local media person in the south, I think he said southeast area of Louisiana. He runs North Shore Media Group. His name is Charles Dowdy, and he did this series podcast on Roxanne. It was titled Who Killed Roxanne? And it's a series. I listened to it on Spotify. I do believe you can listen to it on other platforms. If you search Who Killed Roxanne podcast, I'm sure it will come up. I'm not really going to go into every single detail. This man, Mr. Dowdy, did an incredible job of telling Roxanne's story. He first introduced her, and he told who she was as a person. And I love that because that's what we try to do as well. But yeah, he had previously reached out to other cold case units in the area, in the state, and said, look, if you have any cold cases that you want me to talk about, I can do a podcast and bring awareness to them. Just let me know. And Louisiana State Trooper investigator Stefan Montgomery reached out. He took him up on his offer and said, I have Roxanne Sharp's case. And he brought Stefan onto the podcast. And of course, investigator Montgomery couldn't tell us everything because obviously it was when this first all started, it was still a cold case. They still needed answers. They needed somebody to come talk to them. And that's what he said. He said he had a general idea just needed a little bit more. And he knew that there were people around that still knew some stuff, and he needed them to come forward. And that's what he said from the very beginning. He told him as much about the crime as he could for something that was still technically under investigation. Mr. Dowdy first introduces us to Roxanne about her. She was 16. She was a mother. She had an 18-month old son. When she died, she kind of came from a broken home life. Her dad wasn't involved, and her mom was a struggling single mom. Roxanne was, to put it lightly, she was rough around the edges. She got out there and she roamed the streets. She, of course, didn't come from a lot of money. She roamed the streets. She was into the drug scene, unfortunately, and that does not define what happened to her. It's just part of who she was. And she hung out with older men that would give her money. And she hung out in this area where a lot of the other local criminals hung out, the Ozone area in Covington. The last reported sighting of Miss Roxanne was 2 days before, getting into a white van at the grocery store, I do believe is where they bought their liquor. They ended up finding her body in February of 1982. I do believe it was on a Saturday after a parade, and these men that rode these horses through this parade were gathering firewood to start a fire, and they stumbled across her remains. It's hard. Not a lot of information. They did gather that she was beaten. She was SA'd. Her clothes were kind of scattered in a trail from like the road back to where they found her body eventually. So it does appear that she put up a good fight. Kind of was on par for Roxanne, because the local police said that when they got the call from her mom that she was missing, they said they knew who Roxanne was. They knew of her, and they had other run-ins with her. She liked to get out there. She was only, they said, 140 pounds, 5'1", but she was a spitfire, and she would hold her own. And she liked to get in fights. She would get in fights, and she would unfortunately get in trouble for that, and she would damage property. Like I said, she was rough around the edges. She had to learn how to run the streets. That's how she had to adapt. I mean, obviously, she had a rough upbringing. She did not deserve to be beaten, SA'd, and asphyxiated on a cold night in February in Covington, Louisiana. As you go through this series of listening to Charles Dowdy give the story about Roxanne and having investigator Montgomery kind of tell what he can tell, you hear Charles ask his viewers to share out his podcast, kind of make it known that this story is out there. Because one thing he found when he went to Covington and he was kind of interviewing some people around town, some of the people didn't know about the case. They had no clue. At this point, it had been over 40 years. And although investigators, they did initially look into this case, they had a substantial amount of evidence in a box, over 500 pages. It just kind of went quiet through the years, and people didn't know about it anymore. And it's kind of unfortunate too, because a lot of Roxanne's, her siblings passed. Her dad wasn't involved, so we didn't have a dad, and her mom passed. And she really didn't have any family out there really advocating for answers for her, but not for investigator Stefan Montgomery. He wanted to solve this for her. And I really commend him because he did a good job. He did a good job of pushing and getting this guy to do this podcast and really spreading the awareness, and people started talking. They started sharing on Facebook. They started tagging people, and then more people started listening. And in this little area of Covington, Louisiana, people started sharing stories about Roxanne. And where people thought that maybe, it's been over 40 years, that because of what she did back then, she was a little spitfire. She liked to fight people. She was into the drugs. She hung around probably some characters that she probably wasn't supposed to be hanging around with. She was 16, and it brought out people that said, yeah, I remember her, and they loved her, and they were really affected by her, and it really touched them that it was not solved yet, and people started talking. So we get into the next episode, and it brings in kind of some things that derailed the investigation right off the bat. You had a local serial killer, Robert Willie, who was from the Covington area, and he hung around the Ozone area that other criminals in the Covington, Louisiana area kind of hung out at. And he was in prison at the time of the murder, so he was not involved in Roxanne's case, but still he had acquaintances that in the Ozone area that might be involved. And the thing is about this Ozone area, you got a lot of hardcore criminals, you got a lot of hardcore gangsters. And they're there, and they're committing crimes, and they're planning crimes, and the people that may not be criminally involved, or the families that may just be doing their own thing, just living there, but they don't, if the police come around asking questions, they ain't got nothing to say. I'll just put it that way. And that was kind of the case in Roxanne's case and some of these other cases that were around in this area at the same time. Robert Willie and kind of all their focus and attention on him kind of derailed things for a little bit. Then we get into Mr. Henry Lee Lucas. And I'm not sure if our viewers know about Henry Lee Lucas.
He was a serial killer and serial confessor.
Yes, he was. And unfortunately, he confessed to killing Roxanne. He falsely confessed, but he confessed. And that too set back some things, and it just snowballed from there. We keep going in this series of this podcast series, Who Killed Roxanne? Mr. Dowdy was able to get in touch with a niece of Roxanne. Her mom was Roxanne's sister, and she has since passed. Her niece kind of went over, how she was so appreciative that people were reaching out and giving tips, and she kind of talked about Roxanne for a little bit. She didn't really remember a lot about her, just what her mom had told her. and kind of corroborated she was rough around the edges, but she didn't deserve any of this. And she kind of said that she wanted to see this case solved while somebody in their family would still be around to see it, because as it was, a lot of the siblings were gone, and of course the mom was gone. She just sounded so, heartbroken that this has gone on so long. I thought it was really brave of her to come on and just really speak what was on her mind, and
Absolutely.
how, that she kind of thought that maybe the police didn't look that hard into Roxanne's case because of her drug use and who she was and things like that. But I think in this case, I think it was just a lot of, if it could go wrong, it went wrong type things. Like I said, when they found her body, it had just rained. They had found some of her clothes in the ditch, and the ditches were full of rainwater. So, that kind of compromised things. Then you have people that just are not going to talk because they're living in the same area as the criminals, and they're not
Right.
going to say nothing. And these are pretty rough dudes that they're dealing with, and they're just not going to talk. Then I guess years later, Hurricane Katrina, there was a flood because of Hurricane Katrina, and it flooded out some of the evidence in her case and destroyed some of the evidence. And it's just one thing after another. If it could go wrong, it went wrong in this case. But investigator Stefan Montgomery, he kept pushing. He kept wanting to. He said, there is somebody out there that knows, and there's somebody that can tell me and give me the answers I need. I just need somebody to talk. And
I want to add something real quick. It gets rough sometimes because we get frustrated seeing these cases, and it looks like law enforcement's doing nothing. It looks like they're ignoring it. It looks like they're not investigating. We have to keep in mind that there are some things that law enforcement cannot tell us, so they can't come out and give us every single case detail, because these cold cases, even though they're cold, they're still under investigation. These things get solved a lot of the times because these detectives refuse to let it go. There are families who advocate. I'm not saying that don't happen. In situations like this, where there was almost nobody left, it was this cold case detective that was like, I got to solve this case.
Yeah.
These cases live. These cases live with these detectives, and these detectives make it their life's work. So I just want to remember, and we do cover cases sometimes where there's an element of police corruption. The law doesn't do what it's supposed to do. We absolutely cover those things, but we need to remember that that's not every case, and that's not every police department, and that's not every detective, that's not every investigator. We're going to talk about another case real soon, so I'm not going to go into it too much, but I will say that Brandy and I, over the last couple of weeks, have seen some amazing examples of investigators, of Texas Rangers, sheriffs, deputies, all working together for a common goal. And I just, please remember that these investigators, 99% of the time, they really do care about what they're doing. So I get it. It's frustrating because we're sitting here going, why won't you tell us anything? Why haven't y'all done anything? Why don't y'all have a suspect? Sometimes, like in this case, there's nothing to go on. Everything has been washed away by water. Everything that could go wrong. It's the Murphy's Law of cold cases. Everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. But there's still that detective who, when Charles said, if y'all got cases y'all want the word out, he said, hey, I got one. Those investigators are there. Those detectives are there. So please remember that. Don't hate on our cold case detectives, because they really are, a lot of times, they're the ones making sure that it doesn't die. Of course, the families are in there if there's family left. If there's not, it's these detectives. So just remember that, and huge shout out to Charles. Amazing work. Anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, and you could see as the series went on, and he released it like a week or so apart, and you could see and hear in the podcast how the tips were starting to come in, and when Charles got in touch with Stefan Montgomery, and he tried to talk to him about the case, Stefan Montgomery was getting interrupted a lot more with calls coming in. And that was a good thing.
Yeah.
Because even though he probably couldn't tell him at the time, they were getting some information. And now we know, because I've done What Was Done in the Dark episode on it. They did get information. They were able to arrest 4 individuals. Of course, it's all alleged right now because they got to go through the court of law, but they had DNA evidence that they were able to use modern techniques and DNA evidence to kind of corroborate that these were the individuals involved. Yeah, we gotta get through court and see how this pans out. It's alleged. I can give names. Of course, it's alleged.
Yes.
They all, but the police have released their names. We have a Billy Williams Jr. He's age 62. We have a Daryl Dean Spell. He's age 64, and he was actually one of the ones that they said in the podcast that they saw Roxanne getting into the van with these 2 men, and Daryl Spell was one of them. We have a Perry Wayne Taylor, age 64, and a Carlos Cooper, age 64. They've all been arrested in connection with her murder, and yeah, so we just await on the justice system to do their work, and rest assured that they've got everything sealed tight, and the DA has what they need to prosecute the persons responsible for taking the life of this 16-year-old girl and robbing her infant son at the time of growing up to be with his mother.
Yeah, absolutely. And you gotta, when you're 16, think back to when you were 16. And if you had your mom and dad at home, you had guidance, you had somebody to steer you in the right direction. Think about what could have happened to you if you didn't. Think about what could have happened to you if you were a little bit stubborn, a little bit fiery, and had no direction. And then, you become a mom or you become a parent at 16 and you have no real direction and your home life's kind of, because I don't know. I'm sure her mom worked all the time trying to provide, and probably trying to take care of the grandbaby too. So I'm not saying it was her mom's fault, but I just want to remember it wasn't her fault either. She did what a 16-year-old child with no guidance is going to do. They're going to go find trouble to get into, because what do teenagers do? They think they know everything. They got life all figured out. Let's remember that she could have turned 20, I think it's 25 when your brain's all fully developed, and changed her life and become a social worker and help people. She could have, counseled other young women and said, no, I really do get what you're saying because that was me. Mm-hmm. She could have done so many things, and she should have had the chance.
She should have. I really feel like I got the feeling that Roxanne kind of did what she had to do to survive.
Yeah.
And she kind of had to adapt to what she grew up in. And that was running the streets and getting money where she could and surviving.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it seems to have put her around a group of people that intended to harm her.
Well, I know Brandy will keep us updated I can't wait to hear some updates on this. I can't wait
Yes.
to see if this word changes, when this word changes.
Yes, it's not allegedly anymore.
I can't wait until I don't have to wear this when we talk about it.
And we could say guilty or not guilty.
Right.
Right. Keep it open.
Absolutely. I'll keep it washed for right now. So, but we will come back and we'll bring you an update. And if you haven't watched What Was Done in the Dark, it's on Instagram, it's on Facebook. Brandy puts those out all the time, and she's constantly working on the next one. She puts a lot into it. She puts a lot of work into it. She puts a little bit more work into it than I do. I'm just saying. Just be honest.
It's really, honestly, it's a passion. I love to tell when, after all these years, people get answers and they find and they get closure, and I love it, and I love telling people about it. So, and I hope people enjoy it.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's one of our most popular. That's usually what we get the most reactions and the most commenting so far. I want to mention, before I forget, we are almost at 100 followers, 100 family members on Facebook, you guys.
Yes.
I think when I looked a while ago, it was like 79. Amazing. We get excited every time we go over there. We're getting comments, we're getting shares, we're getting all these things. So thank you to everybody that shares, that comments, that follows, because every comment, every share, every like, every interaction, every follow, these people's names are being remembered.
Yes.
And that's why we're here. Just like Charles, who just wants to help. He wants to get the word out. And he wants to get these cases solved. That's our goal too. Our goal is for us to go out of business, for there to be no cold cases left for us to talk about. And we have to go do something else. I would love that. I would love to film a final episode with a final case update and say, that's it, nationwide. There are no more cold cases. We have nothing left to talk about. Good night. That would be amazing. And is it very likely that it's going to happen? Probably not. But you know what? That can still be our goal.
It can be our goal. It can be our dream. Yes.
Absolutely.
And it's our wish, it's our hope, and it's the whole reason we started doing this, is that maybe one case that we cover will end up like Roxanne's case, and it will spark somebody to talk. If you guys share these cases out, share our posts out, we don't just do it for the likes and kicks, the likes and the clicks. We do it because we want to bring awareness. So share us out, repost us, follow us, help us spread this word, because there may be one person, like in Roxanne's case, that comes forward and breaks one of these cases open and gives a family closure. So yeah, and that's kind of what led me to cover this on What Was Done in the Dark, because I thought it was very interesting that a podcast kind of helped solve this case. It was the podcast bringing awareness, and he did it in such a way, it was ethically right. It wasn't a bunch of clickbait or anything like that. He told the facts, and he told it straight up like it was, and he kept things factual. He really did it in a really great, a wonderful way. It was really, and it was easy to follow. I hope to grow up. I hope me and Mandy can grow up to be like him, because he did a great job with it, and it brought closure. It brought closure for the family, because normally we hear about DNA solving a cold case, and a lot of times it does, and that's great. But this was kind of unusual, and let's make it not so unusual. Let's share these stories out. Let's get some of these cold cases solved.
And podcasters and influencers share each other's stuff. We shouldn't be in such competition that we won't share each other's posts. let's be a community. Let's share each other's stuff. Darkness Debaters shares any post that we can. We share everybody's stuff. If it's a missing person, I don't care. We're not in competition. We're in community. Oh,
I hear your kitty.
yeah, I got a kitty going wild outside the door. He wants inside
Yeah.
because I have a burrito in here waiting for me for when we finish recording. Our merch store. If you want to support us
Yes.
even more, we now
Yes.
have merch. I don't have it on. I have one shirt so far. I have more on the way. Brandy has worked really hard over there and done some designs. I've kind of played with it a little bit. I think I did okay. But Brandy's come up with a lot of neat stuff. T-shirts, magnets, stickers. There's a notebook.
Tumblers. Mhm.
Tumblers. We got tumblers. And we're going to be adding more stuff. We will not have anything like, Darkness Debaters, MMIW, or anything specific like that. We won't do that because we're not going to sell stuff like that to make money for us off of someone else's cause. But we will have Darkness Debaters branded stuff. And we will have stuff that says what was done in the dark. And Into the Weird. We have an Into the Weird shirt. The first shirt I got was an Into the Weird shirt. I love the Into the Weird series. I love all of it, but the Into the Weird is a good, mental deep breath to do something different, talk about whether or not mermaids exist, because these cases, they get cold, or they get heavy. So thank you so much for all your support.
So I don't know if you want to announce it or not. You were going into we're almost at 100 followers on Facebook, and we got the merch store open now. It's open as of May the 1st. And I don't know if you want to get into the giveaway.
Yes, we will have a giveaway when we hit 100 followers on Facebook. We will give away a t-shirt. Maybe there's one design that's still hidden right now that I know of for sure that we might pick that one. I'll tell you what, by the time you see this video, we'll have the shirt and I'll put a picture of it here for you. But we'll figure out a way to do a giveaway. But once we get to 100 followers on Facebook, somebody is getting a free Darkness Debaters t-shirt, and there'll be a link in the description to go to the merch store. It's on our Facebook, it's on our Insta, it's everywhere. If you want to support the podcast, support the work that we do, that's probably the best way to do it, because we don't do memberships, we don't have a Patreon, anything like that. So
Yes. So share us out to your friends and get us up to 100 so we can get that giveaway going. I would love for one of our OGs, as I call you guys, one of our OGs to sport some of our apparel.
Absolutely.
And I think it just would be incredible. So share us out and get us up to 100 on Facebook. I think that's me and Mandy, I've said from the beginning, we want to celebrate every milestone through this journey that we're going on, and 100 followers on Facebook is a milestone to us, and we just couldn't be more in awe of what this is turning into, and we thank you all, and we want to get back to you and award one of you a t-shirt.
Yeah, and we will do more stuff like that. This won't be the only giveaway we do, and it won't only be for milestone followers. It might possibly be just a random Wednesday. You never know. It just depends. Because we love you guys. We're here because you guys are listening.
Yes.
So, you got anything else for us, Brandy?
I don't, other than, what I always say. Keep shining light where darkness dwells.
And I think for this episode, it's got to end the way it ends on Facebook. I'm going to go ahead and say bye, and Brandy's going to take us out.
Until next time. Goodbye.